Greetings, everyone. You're watching Anime Dreams, where we explore the what-ifs that reshape the worlds we thought we knew. Today, we ask a provocative question: what if Naruko had been raised by Jiraiya? Part 2. How would her path, her choices, and even the course of the story itself have changed under his guidance? A brief note before we dive in: this content is purely for discussion and entertainment. I do not own any of the anime footage shown here. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Let's embark on this journey. The next morning, Naruko awoke from her sleep. Her eyes were slightly red and puffy from crying herself to rest, and her movements were sluggish, lacking the usual energy and enthusiasm she had shown the previous day. She dragged herself out of bed, took a refreshing shower, and prepared a simple breakfast, though her appetite was minimal. Afterwards, Naruko locked the door to her apartment and headed to class. Once again, she arrived early, and Iruka-sensei greeted her with a warm smile. The kind expression lifted Naruko's spirit slightly. Noticing her hesitant steps as she made her way to the seat near where Sasuke had been sitting the day before, Iruka-sensei offered a reassuring nod. "Hi, may I sit here again?" Naruko asked tentatively, uncertain how Sasuke would respond. Sasuke glanced at her with mild curiosity and replied, "Sure, why not?" Relief washed over Naruko as she took her seat, and the two began to converse. She learned that Sasuke belonged to the Uchiha clan, and his father, Fugaku, was the head of the clan. Their conversation was gently interrupted when Iruka-sensei called the class to attention and began the lesson. Today, we will begin with a quiz on the chakra system, followed by a practical exercise involving chakra control and jutsu, Iruka-sensei announced. As soon as he finished explaining, quiz papers softly appeared before each student. A quiet sigh came from the back of the room, accompanied by a muttered complaint about quizzes being boring and too much work. When Naruko glanced back, the student had already rested her head and closed her eyes, ignoring the quiz entirely. Naruko smiled faintly to herself and turned her attention to her own quiz. The questions were mostly straightforward, asking about the flow of chakra and including diagrams to complete. "Seigi told me to make her proud. I can do this," Naruko thought determinedly as she picked up her pen. She quickly completed the quiz and then took a moment to observe her classmates. She noticed that each student had unique features and many displayed symbols representing their families and clans. She also remembered how some had been cautioned by their parents to avoid her the previous day. A small hope flickered within her that she might be able to make a few friends after all. The quiz concluded quickly, and, after the sleeping student had been gently awakened, the papers vanished in a small puff of smoke. The students were then led outside to the playground, where Iruka-sensei stood ready to explain the next exercise. Today, we will begin practicing chakra control. While your chakra systems are still developing, this exercise will help you focus and channel your energy. Your goal is to direct chakra to your fingertips and use it to climb this smooth wall, Iruka-sensei explained. With a soft shimmer, a polished wooden wall appeared. It was about 6 feet tall, manageable for shinobi, but challenging for students who had never climbed using only chakra. The children were instructed not to take a running start, relying instead on the power flowing through their hands and feet. Naruko sat beside Sasuke and closed her eyes, concentrating on her chakra system. Warmth spread through her body as she focused on the inner energy she had been practicing to cultivate. Her parents had spent hours teaching her about chakra, so the meditation portion of the exercise felt familiar. However, directing the energy to her fingertips and maintaining it while climbing proved far more difficult. Many of her classmates struggled, sliding back down as their focus wavered. Naruko watched as Sasuke made his first attempt and nearly reached the top. She placed her hands on the wall, felt her chakra grip the surface, and began to climb. Despite her determination, her energy began to slip, and she gently descended before reaching Sasuke's height. "Naruko, remember to maintain a steady flow of chakra to your fingers and toes. If you pause, the energy will fade," Iruka-sensei advised, smiling encouragingly. Naruko nodded and focused her energy once again. On her third attempt, she successfully reached the top, finishing second. She struggled to sustain the flow of chakra and soon decided to try again. After several more attempts, each child had completed the climb at least once, some requiring gentle guidance from Iruka-sensei. When the exercise concluded, the students were free to play. The parents arrived at the playground to pick them up, and Naruko remained on a swing for a moment, watching as the others left. Though she felt the pang of loneliness once more, she took a deep breath and began walking home. This time, she made sure to memorize the route, determined not to ask for directions again. Once home, Naruko prepared a simple dinner and lay down to rest, clutching the frog-shaped wallet her guardian had given her, wishing quietly for a sense of belonging and comfort. The following month, Naruko gradually settled into a routine. She would wake up, prepare her own breakfast, attend the academy, and then, after the other children had been taken by their parents to play elsewhere, she would either spend time by herself or return home. The highlight of her day was always at the academy. Iruka-sensei was kind and encouraging, and the other students seemed more accepting of her than the villagers outside. Sasuke had even started talking to her more, and while she didn't know all the other children well, a few had introduced themselves. Kiba, Shino, Shikamaru, and Choji all seemed friendly, although she didn't usually sit near them in class. Sasuke also told her that the girl with pink hair was named Sakura and the blonde one was Ino. But when class ended, the villagers would often collect the children and cast wary glances at her. Some days were harder than others, and it always reminded her how alone she felt. At night, Naruko found herself clutching the frog-shaped wallet more tightly, thinking of Ma, Pa, and Sage. She felt caught in a cycle she didn't fully understand, unsure how to navigate her feelings. One Saturday morning, a little over a month after Jiraiya had left for his mission, sunlight streamed through her window. She was stirred awake by an unfamiliar sound, a sizzling noise, and the aroma of food cooking. But she was still in her room. And the door was locked? Curious, Naruko jumped out of bed and opened the door to her small living space to find a young kunoichi at the stove. The woman turned to her with a warm smile. Her long, dark brown hair was braided neatly behind her head, and her forehead was protected by the Leaf Village symbol. She wore a fitted white outfit with red sleeves and hand wraps, and her reddish-brown eyes were gentle yet alert. "Good morning, Naruko. I'm Kurenai Yuhi," she said kindly. "Ah. Good morning. Who are you?" Naruko asked, unsure how to react. It wasn't every day that a stranger was cooking breakfast in her home, yet the kunoichi didn't seem the least bit surprised. Kurenai carefully placed a plate of eggs, rice, and bacon on the table, along with a glass of juice, and gestured for Naruko to sit. The inviting aroma made Naruko's stomach rumble, and she quickly moved to the table and began to eat eagerly. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," Kurenai said with a gentle smile. "Well, Master Jiraiya asked me to check in on you from time, to make sure you're eating well and feeling okay." Naruko blinked, a little overwhelmed, but managed a small smile in return, swallowing her food as Kurenai watched thoughtfully. Flashback. Early one morning, Kurenai had heard a knock on her apartment door. Yawning, she opened it to find Jiraiya standing there, unusually serious. "May I come inside?" he asked. "Of course, Lord Jiraiya. What brings you here so early?" "I heard you're leaving on an important mission," Kurenai replied. Jiraiya nodded. "Yes, but I need to ask you something about my charge, Naruko. I know the village hasn't always been kind to her, and it will be difficult at first. She's been raised with care by me or the Toad Sages, but she needs someone to look out for her while I'm away, someone who can help her feel seen and supported." Kurenai listened carefully as Jiraiya continued. "Naruko is a good child. The villagers may not understand her yet, and she could use a friend who can help her navigate that. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you visit her occasionally? She'd benefit from your gentle guidance." Kurenai agreed, understanding the importance of the request. Though she hadn't planned on visiting, she decided that if Jiraiya considered it crucial enough to come to her personally, she would make the effort. End flashback. Kurenai truly understood what it meant to arrive in the village as an outsider. She herself had come to Konoha at a young age and remembered the isolation and uncertainty that accompanied being new. How could she refuse such a heartfelt request from one of the legendary shinobi? She agreed and had been keeping a discreet eye on the child ever since, making sure she was safe, though this was the first time Kurenai had actually visited her in person. "So, how are you, Naruko?" Kurenai asked as the young girl eagerly ate her rice and eggs. Upon entering, Kurenai noticed that the apartment was tidy, though it was obvious that Naruko had mostly been eating instant noodles over the past month. Remembering Jiraiya's warning that the child likely wouldn't prepare anything else while left alone, Kurenai had taken the liberty of bringing some freshly prepared food. "I'm okay. I like the academy a lot," Naruko replied, her attention focused on the meal rather than the rest of the village. Kurenai wasn't surprised. She had been observing the young girl as much as she could in her spare time. She had noticed that Naruko had begun forming a tentative friendship with the Uchiha sibling, but often found herself left out. Villagers frequently ignored her or subtly discouraged others from interacting with her. Kurenai smiled warmly. "Iruka-sensei is a wonderful teacher. He told me you've been doing very well. The academy is a great place to learn. Have you made any friends?" Naruko gave a hesitant nod, unsure whether anyone at the academy could truly be called a friend. Sasuke Uchiha. Maybe. He's quiet. Kurenai offered another smile as she refilled Naruko's plate. Watching her eat, she realized that the girl had likely been skipping meals and was noticeably thin. It pained her to think that the village had overlooked someone so young and full of potential. Although Kurenai had originally planned a brief visit, she found herself wanting to spend the day with Naruko, offering her a joyful experience that had been missing for some time. "What would you like to do today, Naruko?" she asked. Naruko paused mid-bite, her wide eyes reflecting both surprise and uncertainty. It was clear she had expected Kurenai to leave after a brief check-in. I don't know. People. They don't really like me, she admitted, looking down shyly. Kurenai's heart went out to her. She could only imagine the hours Naruko had spent alone in her apartment. Kurenai gave her a reassuring smile. "Well, let's take a walk. I can show you around Konoha. You haven't been out much, have you?" Naruko's face lit up as she nodded, a genuine smile spreading across her features. Over the next few hours, Kurenai guided Naruko through the village, ignoring the cold stares of the villagers. She pointed out the shinobi training fields, the Hokage monument carved into the mountain, the bustling markets, weapon shops, and the residential areas of various clans. For the first time in weeks, Naruko felt relaxed and a spark of happiness as she explored beyond the academy walls. When they reached the final training field, Kurenai explained how anyone could use it as long as it wasn't reserved for a team. They returned to Naruko's apartment, where Kurenai made sure she had a proper dinner before leaving, promising to visit again when she could. While Kurenai could not shield Naruko from the village entirely, she had at least shown the child that someone cared. That small act of kindness gave Naruko a measure of reassurance that not everyone in the village was unkind, making the world seem a little less intimidating. Late one evening. Weeks had passed since Kurenai's visit. She hadn't seen Naruko again, but she would soon have a few days off and planned to visit. After finishing a long mission, she was relaxing with a book and a drink when a knock sounded at her door. Surprised by the late-hour visitor, she opened the door to find a young silver-haired shinobi standing there, Kakashi Hatake, known as the Copy Ninja. He looked weary from his recent long-term assignment in the Land of Waves. Kurenai invited him inside. "Kurenai, I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just returned and heard. Is it true that Lord Jiraiya left a child in the village?" Kurenai nodded. Kakashi's normally relaxed demeanor seemed tense. He asked her to describe the child. "Her name is Naruko Uzumaki. She's 4.5 years old, intelligent, perceptive, and very spirited. But the villagers, for the most part, see her as unusual and are wary of her. She's handling it remarkably well, considering her age." Kakashi's expression tightened briefly before he quietly thanked her and departed, leaving Kurenai slightly puzzled by his urgency. What she did not know was that Kakashi had retreated to a hidden vantage point nearby. Normally reserved and calm, he was deeply moved by the knowledge of Naruko's situation. Though she reminded him so much of his own beloved teacher, he knew that approaching her directly could draw unwanted attention and put her at risk. "I wish I could help you, Naruko. I promise, one day, I will be there for you and teach you everything you need to know," he thought, standing beneath the stars as he silently vowed to protect her in the future. A few months later. A few months after Kurenai's initial visit, Naruko had finally settled into a steady routine. She attended class in the morning and spent her afternoons training. Most of the other children had started keeping their distance, influenced by their parents' subtle warnings. There was nothing specific said, but the children tended to follow their example. This left Naruko feeling lonely, and even Sasuke had begun to pull away, speaking to her less often. Naruko had hoped to make friends in her class, but it was difficult, as the other children were usually whisked away by their parents as soon as school ended. Determined to improve herself, she returned to the wooden wall that Iruka-sensei had set up for practice. She had lost track of how many times she had attempted to climb it, but every fall only fueled her determination. Frustrated, she tapped the ground with her hand. "Why is this so difficult? It's just a wooden wall," Naruko thought to herself as she stood up to try again. "You've been at this for a while, Naruko. Maybe you should take a little break?" a familiar voice called. Naruko almost lost her balance in surprise. Iruka-sensei approached, smiling warmly. He had been observing her daily efforts and had finally decided to step in. "Why are you so determined to climb the wall? You already managed it during class," he asked gently. "I want to be able to do it perfectly on the first try. I want to get stronger," Naruko replied, her eyes bright with determination. After a pause, she admitted the deeper reason behind her persistence. I was hoping that if I got really good at this, maybe the other kids would want to be my friends. Iruka-sensei's smile deepened as he considered her words. Naruko, the other children don't dislike you, they simply don't know you yet, and neither do their parents. You see the faces on the mountain over there? They're there to remind us what we should strive for in life. Those people dedicated themselves to protecting the village and everyone in it, even those who didn't always agree with them. If you want to grow stronger, do it for the right reasons, protect the people who are important to you, not just for attention. Show others who you truly are, and in time, they will come to understand you. And remember to smile more, I don't see that bright smile as often anymore. Keep training and never let anyone discourage you, okay? Naruko was quiet for a moment, reflecting on Iruka-sensei's advice. The Hokage would protect everyone, even those they didn't always like? She thought. One day, Iruka-sensei, I'm going to be Hokage, she exclaimed with uncontainable excitement. Her energy made Iruka-sensei smile. Well, you can't focus on big dreams on an empty stomach. I know just the place for you. Follow me, it's just down the street, and it's my treat. Iruka-sensei led Naruko to one of his favorite spots in the village, Ichiraku Ramen. Naruko's eyes widened in delight, she had no idea such a place existed. She eagerly ordered a large bowl of ramen with beef and vegetables. The owner and his daughter laughed warmly as Iruka-sensei explained a few training tips to help Naruko improve her climbing skills over lunch. For the first time in a long while, Naruko felt a sense of belonging. She realized there were people in the village who accepted her for who she was. As she parted ways with her sensei later, a smile lit her face, she finally felt like this village could truly be her home. Jiraiya lay awake, gazing at the moonlight cascading over the landscape. She had been away from Konoha and Naruko for over 6 months, and she realized with a quiet surprise how much she missed the spirited presence of the young ninja and her persistent curiosity. Naruko had become an unexpectedly important part of her life. For the past 3 months, Jiraiya had been tracking a group of highly skilled rogue shinobi, hoping to gather any information regarding Orochimaru's whereabouts, but so far, her efforts had yielded little. These shinobi were extremely capable, moving with precision and strategy. She had nearly intercepted them on several occasions, only for them to slip away without a trace. Their coordination was remarkable, their intellect evident, and their strength intimidating. It was no wonder that most of Jiraiya's usual contacts had been hesitant to engage with her. What concerned her most was that she could not even obtain an accurate description of these elusive opponents. One fact stood out clearly, they seemed particularly interested in the Jinchuriki. She did not yet understand why, but their presence had unsettled her network deeply. Rumors had even begun to circulate about a new settlement calling itself the Sound Village, though concrete information remained scarce. Sighing, Jiraiya returned her gaze to the moon, recognizing that this mission would likely take longer than anticipated. Her thoughts inevitably drifted back to Naruko. She's a resilient child. I'm confident she can manage, and Kurenai will be keeping an eye on her, Jiraiya murmured softly. With a small smile, she turned over and finally allowed herself to rest. Back in Konoha. Meanwhile, far from the moonlit mission, another figure lay awake in Konoha. A small sigh escaped as the young figure shifted under the soft glow filtering through the window blinds, casting gentle shadows across the room. Hinata Hyuga, heir to the Hyuga clan, found rest elusive, her thoughts constantly drawn to the blonde newcomer in her academy class. Naruko seemed kind and sincere, yet Hinata had been cautioned by her father to keep her distance. Most adults shared her father's concerns, though Hinata struggled to understand their reasoning. She had observed Naruko from afar, noticing the quiet strength and determination that seemed to define her days. Though initially shy, Hinata felt a growing admiration for Naruko's perseverance. She often wished she could display the same quiet confidence and inner strength. Despite her father's warnings, Hinata had even tried to find subtle ways to support Naruko, though her efforts were often accompanied by a lingering uncertainty. Flashback. Dressed in her pristine white kimono, Hinata knelt before her father, Hiyashi, who regarded her with his usual calm, composed expression. Hinata, a new member has joined your class. Her name is Naruko Uzumaki. I expect you to maintain your focus and avoid unnecessary associations. As the heir to the Hyuga clan, your actions reflect the honor of our family, he stated firmly. Hinata, soft-spoken and hesitant by nature, found herself quietly questioning this directive. Father, why should I keep away from her? She seems kind and has done nothing wrong, she whispered. Though his expression remained controlled, his tone conveyed the weight of expectation. You must understand, Hinata, Your responsibilities are paramount. Choosing otherwise could bring unnecessary complications. Remember your role and the standards you uphold as the future of our clan. Hinata bowed deeply, acknowledging her father's words, and stepped back, her heart heavy yet determined to navigate the delicate balance between duty and her own sense of fairness. Hinata had cried herself to sleep that night. She had been trying so hard in her training, yet she felt she could not meet her father's expectations. Though she had tried to keep her distance, she often found herself watching Naruko. She admired how Naruko never let the villagers' opinions stop her from striving to prove herself, and Hinata wished she could be more like that. She never gives up, Hinata thought quietly. She remembered hearing Naruko declare several times that she wanted to become the Hokage. Hinata wasn't sure where the idea had come from, but she secretly hoped it would come true. Naruko never let obstacles stand in her way and was always pushing herself to improve. Hinata believed that someday Naruko would achieve her goal, she had the determination for it. Hinata had thought about approaching Naruko several times, but her father's strict words and her own shyness held her back. What would Naruko think of me? I'm so inexperienced. I just wish she could be my friend, Hinata thought, turning over in bed. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she reflected on Naruko's strength and resilience. Even when faced with the village's skepticism, Naruko carried on with a determined smile. Eventually, Hinata drifted into a restless sleep. The next afternoon, Naruko was training on the practice fields designated for her age group. Under the guidance of Iruka-sensei and Kurenai, she was learning to use kunai and other ninja tools with greater precision. Her skills improved daily, though she still faced challenges controlling her chakra. At that moment, she was doing extra push-ups, frustrated after missing a target during practice. Naruko's training had become more focused once she set a clear goal for herself. The villagers don't understand me, but the Hokage protects everyone, no matter what. I want to be like that, I want to protect people. I will grow stronger and show them who I truly am. Naruko thought, pushing herself to stand again. With Iruka's help, she had advanced in both technique and meditation, mastering practical applications she had only understood in theory before. Kurenai had visited a few times as well, explaining her expertise in genjutsu and helping Naruko understand the difference between ninjutsu and genjutsu in real situations. Naruko often thought back to the last visit with Kurenai. She had taken her to the Konoha Zoo, where Naruko was fascinated by all the animals, from bears and lions to monkeys and snakes. She remembered Kurenai's playful words about a small wolf, and how Naruko had laughed and felt a sense of belonging she rarely experienced in the village. Those small moments of connection meant a great deal to her. Even though other children rarely spoke to Naruko, she felt grateful for those few who cared. With renewed energy, she returned to her training. Unknown to Naruko, someone was quietly observing from the edge of the training field. Hinata had hidden behind a tree, captivated by Naruko's dedication. She wanted so much to say hello, yet her courage faltered. Come on, I can do it. I can say hi, she thought. But her body wouldn't move. As afternoon drew on, she knew her father would expect her to return for her own training. She stepped back and accidentally snapped a small branch underfoot. The noise seemed enormous to her, and she froze in panic. Hello? Is someone there? Naruko called out, having heard the sound. Hinata was paralyzed with fear, certain that Naruko would be upset to find her spying. Naruko stepped forward, brushing aside a branch, and was surprised to find a girl of her own age standing nervously. Hinata had dark hair with hints of purple and soft lilac eyes, dressed in traditional ninja attire with a light coat over it. Gaining a measure of composure, Hinata bowed her head. I'm Hinata Hyuga, she stammered, her words jumbled in embarrassment. Naruko smiled warmly at her. Hi. I'm Naruko Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you. Could she become my friend? Naruko wondered quietly, her heart lifting at the possibility. Hinata lifted her head and offered a shy smile, fingers fidgeting together with the tips interlaced nervously. She wasn't sure what to do, she felt caught off guard, and her cheeks warmed as she realized Naruko could see her reaction. You look a little flushed. Are you all right? Naruko asked gently, her tone full of concern. Why yes, I am, Hinata replied softly, barely audible, trying her hardest to stay composed. Naruko looked at the girl in front of her with a bright, encouraging smile. After months of wondering, she finally found the courage to ask a question that had been on her mind for over 6 months. Would you, like to be my friend, Hinata? Naruko asked, attempting to sound casual, though her heart was racing with hope. She's a little shy, but maybe she wants to be my friend. Naruko thought, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. Hinata's heart fluttered. She had been caught off guard, and now Naruko wanted to be her friend. For the first time, she ignored the critical voice in her head, the one that often echoed her father's expectations. Why yes, I like to be friends, Hinata replied, her voice trembling slightly but her lips forming a small smile. Naruko practically leapt with joy. Perhaps it was a little over the top, but she couldn't contain her excitement at having a friend from her class. Would you like to train together? Naruko asked quickly, hoping Hinata wouldn't change her mind. Well, I am not very skilled, but. Oh okay, Hinata replied hesitantly. That's perfectly fine. Neither am I, but we can get stronger together. Naruko's enthusiasm was infectious, and Hinata felt a small easing of her nervousness, until she remembered she needed to get home soon. I need to go home soon, Hinata said, looking down, worried she might have spoiled the moment. Alright. How about tomorrow? Want to meet here after class to train? Hinata could only nod in response. Naruko waved cheerfully and said goodbye, while Hinata hurried away. Her heart raced, and butterflies filled her stomach. She was overjoyed to have a new friend but also anxious that her father might notice her absence. She arrived home just in time for her own training. Though Hyashi reminded her sternly to be punctual and pointed out her shortcomings, Hinata felt a small spark of happiness she had never experienced before, the thought that Naruko was her friend. Somehow, it made the criticism a little easier to bear. High above in a tree overlooking the training area, a soft, quiet chuckle whispered through the leaves. A third observer had been watching the entire scene unfold. After Naruko left, the figure stepped down, gathering a broken branch that had revealed Hinata's hiding place. Carefully, she removed a small piece of paper containing a short-lived training jutsu, allowed it to vanish safely, and set the pieces of the branch apart. It's about time that happened, the figure murmured softly before disappearing into the shadows. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to stay tuned for more exciting content. Thank you for your support. Warm regards. Anime Dreams.